Welcome to Everyday Economics, the podcast that helps you learn about the economic world happening around you every day. I'm your host, Chris Krug, president of the 501c3 nonprofit, nonpartisan Franklin News Foundation. Everyday Economics is a production of America's Talking Network. You can subscribe to all of our podcasts at americastalking.com. To support Everyday Economics, please make a tax-deductible charitable contribution by clicking the link in the show description. We are recording this episode on Friday, December 8th. And joining me, as always, my partner, Dr. Orphe Divounguy, PhD economist. Dr. O, jobs report came in, and, the estimate was 190,000 jobs to be added. The report says that, that it came in at 199. I look at these, and I have to squint because, we've had revisions, and not insignificant revisions for what amounts to be, I think, the last 3 or 4 monthly job reporting periods, and the revisions down where, there actually were fewer jobs. And, as noted, I think the last time that we talked about this, which would have probably been about a month ago, there's still a significant percentage of these jobs that are public sector jobs. They're government jobs. They're not, yes, they employ people, but no, I mean, they're not, they're not jobs that are sort of holding themselves up. These are jobs that the taxpayers are paying for. So I'll step aside there. You tell me what you make of this report. And then let's get into a couple of ancillary questions here about what you see.
For sure. I mean, we got to be fair, man. I get that those are jobs that the taxpayer is paying for, but the taxpayers, most of the time, at least most of the time, I would hope anyway, is getting something out of it, getting a service out of this, right? In most, at least in most, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say most places because you live in Illinois and you know what that's like over there.
I hate to be sour, but I'm going to be a little bit sour on that.
Yeah, no, totally. Look, the jobs report, I think the consensus was about 190,000 jobs created. We came in at 199. We had wage growth at 4%, 4.1% penciled in. We came in at 4%. And so I think, the jobs report came in line with expectations. And so maybe the market shouldn't, react like it did. I mean, you saw the yield on the 10-year jump this morning. Market overreacted a little bit. But it reacted to the fact that the unemployment rate dropped from 3.9% down to 3.7%. And to me, it kind of confirms everything I've been saying, which is that labor supply remains a challenge in this country and that the labor market is still very tight. You could bring down demand as much as you want, but if there's no supply, in other words, and what I'm hearing from people is that employers are canceling their expansion plans, but they're doing so not necessarily because the consumer has slowed down so much. Yes, the consumer has slowed, but the consumer's not tapped out yet. But because where the heck would the workers come from in the first place? I mean, like we've seen a massive surge in labor force participation, and then labor force participation has finally stalled. Has like the past 6 months or so, we're not getting any more increases in the labor force participation rate. And basically, we're at a point where you're like, okay, we're using these same workers. So workers are losing jobs and they're finding them pretty quickly. And we're not getting that big increase in labor supply that we really need, or productivity, right? I mean, we've had some good productivity numbers lately, and we're really going to need to keep seeing more of that if we're going to see wage growth, labor cost decline, and we're headed towards a soft landing. Let's put it this way, and that's a good thing. And I think this jobs report puts to rest the doom and gloom reports that were basically, hey, the labor market's falling apart. People saw the ADP number that came in well below expected on Wednesday. And I think they panicked a little bit, thinking, hey, the labor market's crashing. Then you had these two economists from Bloomberg. Have you seen that article? I shared that article.
Yes, I wanted to ask you that question. Yeah, you shared that with me earlier this morning. And, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. And I don't pretend to know what I don't know. So I'll ask you. They're suggesting that, that perhaps, and I'll take perhaps out, they're suggesting in their work that we've been in a recession since October. So the last time I brought up recession was at the beginning of this economic period of uncertainty, right before we started, raising the Fed rate and you're like, we're not in a recession. I said, well, but we were in a technical recession. And like, I think you said there's no such thing, or whatever you'd said to me that was way smarter than what I had just said. Is really the nature of this show and the nature of our relationship. But are we in a recession, Dr. O?
No, we're not. We're not. Look, we got these two economists. I think they're kind of, they I don't want to call them rogue. They're not rogue. They're just completely, they're outliers. Right. And this is the bottom line. I think they're just outliers. Bloomberg, I don't know anybody else who thinks that, first of all, their forecast was completely off, right? They expected a rise in the unemployment rate to 4%, from 3.9%. We got the opposite. They were right about the fact that employment would rise. But, and maybe they'll be proven right. They think it's temporary, and they think the employment increase was solely coming from workers on strike coming back. Right. And so, we'll see. We'll see. The one thing they're right about, though, is that usually you're in a recession before you even know that you're in a recession. Right. And so I saw this and I thought, hey, maybe I should take this a little bit seriously. And then I just look at and I just pay attention. I was paying attention to what they're saying, and I just don't see it yet. And look, ultimately, maybe they're right. Maybe maybe the consumer's slowing so much, and maybe the consumer has to continue to slow in order for us to get back to kind of a normal wage growth falling back down and inflation coming back down to the 2% target. Maybe, I don't know.
Good stuff, as always, Dr. O. For Orphe Divounguy, this has been Chris Krug. Subscribe to Everyday Economics and dozens of other high-quality podcasts at americastalking.com.
Are you tired of news that puts politics over people? At the nonprofit Franklin News Foundation, we believe in putting people over politics by delivering nonpartisan news and audio content that serves you, the American taxpayer. With Franklin News Foundation, you can read fact-based, state-focused news for free at thecentersquare.com. You can listen to civil, balanced conversations between policy experts through our podcast network at americastalking.com. Or you can get in-depth news on K-12 education spending, curriculum, and school safety at chalkboardnews.com. It's all free through Franklin, where we put you, the American taxpayer, first in every story, episode, and conversation. And it's only possible through our supporters. Together, we can produce content that puts people over politics and brings Americans the news they deserve. Become a supporter today at franklinnews.org/donate. Once again, that's franklinnews.org/donate.